steering committee, and we have held true to that promise, meaning that last year, while we celebrated the first virtual LAC IGF event between the 8th to the 10th of August, LAC was not part of that steering committee, but rather an ordinary member. So just a quick line on that LAC IGF event. Some of the topics that were addressed include opportunities during the pandemic to enhance internet technologies, inclusion issues, including infrastructure and regulatory challenges of the Sustainable Development Goals and how they may be reframed during the pandemic. And of course, internet governance, gender, and intersectionality. It was a very successful 3-day event with a lot of participation. And there was also an update of a review process that had been initiated since 2019 on what would be considered LAC IGF 2.0, another format and another model going forward to address discussions at the Latin American and Caribbean region. What I can say is that to date that those discussions are still underway. One of the points that had been raised during the review process was the impact of intersessional work and how this intersessional work can actually have a greater influence on policy formulation at national levels. And it's with that in mind that I'd like to share my screen now and talk about another initiative that LAC is leading to really give a bolster to national, regional, sub-regional, and youth IGF initiatives in Latin America and the Caribbean. Let me just, okay. Oh, I may have to swap displays. All right. Are you seeing my presentation clearly?
We are seeing the slide, but it's not in presentation mode.
Okay, let me swap again. Ooh. Okay, I'll launch one last time. Okay, and okay, I think that should work. Is it still, are you seeing it in the presentation mode?
No, it hasn't propagated through. No. But I mean, it's okay. It's legible. Well, I see in some other slides that might not be so legible. So,
all right.
Yeah,
this is very interesting. Let me see if, okay. I think now. Okay. I will try to just speak through this presentation right now.
All right. Yeah.
Just in the interest of time. So I like to talk about LeaderS 2.0. So what exactly is LeaderS? Our traditional format for LeaderS is an NRI support program that we had to support, on the one hand, the funding of the organization of national IG spaces. And with that funding also came advice and also an offer to have a speaker from LAC participate in these national IG spaces. And then on the other hand, the support, travel support to leaders or coordinators from those national spaces to participate in LAC IGF. This was an initiative that we started since 2017. We had over 28 successful candidates that came through this program. And we also try to push as a priority what we would call neo-embryonic IG spaces across the region. So we kept a monitor of all the IG spaces that were occurring. Any IG space that had less than 3 editions were often considered a priority for funding under leaders. But what happened with the pandemic is that we had seen a number of changes. So in the first instance, there simply was not a lot of IGFs being hosted across the region as communities, of course, grappled with different pivoting strategies and the like that they wanted to weather the pandemic. As a matter of fact, under the traditional format Whereas by mid-year, we would have typically received up to about, let's say, 15 to 17 requests. By mid-year, we had only received 3 requests. So far, we had been able to honor 2 of them, which was the TTIGF and another space called IG-FEM Panama, which was a women's IGF initiative just at the brink of the pandemic. But beyond that, there had not been a lot of activity, and as a result, there were not a lot of requests for our traditional approach to supporting NRIs. Herein lies this new format called Leaders 2.0, where we decided that based on some of the feedback we had heard with the reformulation and the review of the LAC IGF process, we can make a significant indent in what would be intersessional work. And with Leaders 2.0, we came up with this format. It's a funding and mentorship program so that successful applicants can research and present in more detail their knowledge on select IG issues as perceived within their communities. This consists in small projects where the outputs could be either digital publications, a series of podcasts, a series of infographics and videos and the like. We had set up from the start of this year onwards a repository, what I like to refer to as an IG portal, where you can have a view of these activities, of these outputs. And then last but not least, we wanted to ensure a couple of other things, that there was no duplication of existing works, and that we also prioritized perspectives, diverse perspectives across the region. Let me continue. 1 minute.
Tracy also made a good suggestion that if they can get in presentation mode, you might be able to increase the Zoom percentage.
Certainly, I'm going to.
That might help.
All right, let me just stop share and share one more time. For some reason, my entire system is Murphy's Law.
Yes, indeed.
My mouse seems to have frozen as well. All right. Share screen one more time.
Right.
Okay.
That's better. Well, it's better Zoom. What are we seeing? We are seeing the presenter's view rather than, right.
Okay,
Very
perfect.
Yeah.
Finally. All right.
Yes.
So in terms of the thematic areas that we were looking at with this new format, we had 5. Last year, we focused on 3, the first 3, and then this year we have expanded it to 2 others. So 5 in total, where we are addressing internet and the pandemic, the impact on human rights, digital inclusion, security and trust. And then we added 2 new categories called internet and productivity and strengthening the expansion of NRIs. The idea is that these issue areas are actually aligned with what would be the call for workshops and the call for activities, either the LAC IGF or the global IGF levels. So ideally, if one were participating in either the regional LAC IGF or the global IGF, they would be very much inclined to participate in a program such as Leaders 2.0, where they'll be able to access funding to develop the initial research, and of course have access to a mentor to hone what that research could look like in terms of its scope, in terms of the research questions that they were looking to answer, and the like. And what you will see here in the fine print, of course, this presentation will be available to you afterwards, are some of the ideas that could be developed under the greater thematic areas. So for instance, for internet and productivity, one of the things that we were interested in looking at is the organizational experiences when it came to remote working. So not just remote working, but the entire question of teleworking and different practices that would have happened because of the pandemic. We would have seen and we would have heard anecdotally of organizations having to undertake accelerated digitization and transformation initiatives while continuing to work. So some of those stories from the people in the trenches were what we were looking forward to hearing about. The selection criteria for Leaders 2.0, we have these 5 criteria and they're weighted somewhat differently in between. They're not equally weighted. One of them, number 1, the alignment in thematic area. 2, coherence, which we find very useful with the problem definition. Is it well defined? Is there alignment between what is the problem definition and the proposed approach? Originality of works, geographic diversity, and stakeholder diversity. So the program allows people to apply to it as individuals. However, there is an option for you to add collaborators. If you're adding collaborators and they come from different stakeholder groupings, there was a greater amount of points that were awarded for those sorts of approaches. And let me just mention as well that we had all of this conducted under steering committee last year. The steering committee this year are the names that you're seeing to the right side of this slide. They would be our very own Nigel Casimir, Raquel Gatto, who is a well-known IG reference person from Brazil, Alejandra Erasmusme from Uruguay, and Julian Casabuenas from Colombia. So we tried as much to get some sort of representation from different areas of the region, the Andean community, South Cone, the Caribbean, and of course a balance of male and female mentors. And in terms of our cycle last year, so last year we ran Leader Race from September. That's when the call for information was launched. It was closed in October, and then from October till January was the period in which the researchers and the candidates had to come up with their research outputs. And of course, they had access to a mentor during that time. And the mentor, that access meant that they had a flexible 10-hour period in which they can contact their mentor for advice and how to present their findings. So some of the results of the 2020 cycle, we had over 900 visits to the call for information page. We had at least 46 applications last year. There were a couple more, but some of them were erroneous applications. We selected 16 from that number 46. The distribution of that, given that we were focusing on 3 thematic areas last year, is that we had 3 answering the human rights topic, 2 on security and trust, and 11 on digital inclusion. And whereas that reflects the distribution of those 16, what this actually did reflect as well is that at the level of 46, there was a huge interest of persons across the region to address digital inclusion during this phase of sudden digital transformation, because it's often felt that sometimes inclusion may be put by the wayside while we are struggling to continue having operability and sustainability with work practices. In terms of the subregions, we had 7 from Central America, 2 from the Caribbean, and 7 from South America. The 2 from the Caribbean were both from Haiti with very strong proposals. One dealing with mapping cases of cyberbullying within Haiti, and the other one which dealt with digital literacy for inclusion and active participation of young people. They were very strong projects that I would encourage everyone to go and visit to have some of those more detailed aspects of issues that the Haitian community is facing. And in terms of the selected projects, over 800 visits to that page on the selected projects. And the initiative had a reach of over 10,000 on our social media based on people who actually gave impressions or likes or retweets of the initiative. And this year, what I would say is that we had conducted this, so the cycle 2020 spilled over into this year. One of the key components we've had after the research period was to have a peer exchange among our candidates so that among themselves they can hear in detail what each other was focusing on, and of course use that opportunity to develop synergies where they can probably develop their research further with other lines of assistance. There were a series of promotional videos on research projects, and of course, we also facilitated the possibility for some of the researchers to be interviewed by regional media houses across Latin America and the Caribbean. In terms of what is currently happening, the call for applications is still open for the 2021 cycle. It was supposed to end last Friday, but we extended it by 1 more week. So all of you who are listening up to this, feel free to go to the website and see if one of the 5 thematic areas aligns to something that you have in mind to develop research. You'll get access to a grant of $1,500 US, and you have to conduct that research within 3 months. So far, we have had 25 applications to date. We've had 400 visits to the LeaderS website. I really want to ensure that we can engender a lot of interest in this so that our process is complete. The idea is that we are going to continue supporting 16 projects out of the global pool, and we want to ensure that these 16 projects are of high caliber and high value for the rest of us to consult and understand internet governance issues within the region. And they continue to be put into that IG repository that we have within LACNIC on the LACNIC website. And I will encourage everyone to go on and have a view of some of those projects. At this current time, the projects are in their original language, but we are ensuring that within a month, all the projects will be either in both English and Spanish. The Portuguese projects will also be available in English and Spanish. So I will stick a pin in there now, and I'm not sure whether we'll do questions right now. We'll probably defer them to another point.
Yes, afterwards.
Okay.
Right, so yes, so take a note of your any questions you might have for Kevin on the LAC situation and the project opportunity. It's but basically it's an opportunity for you to undertake some micro projects with some support and exposure through LACNIC.